She had never heard silence like this before. Not the cold silence of a snowfield, where every breath turns into frost, or the sterile quiet of a military hospital, where machines beep like ghosts. This silence was alive, buzzing, breathing, pulsing with the hum of insects and the rustle of leaves that whispered secrets she couldn't understand. Elena Volkova stood at the edge of the jungle in northern Palawan, boots sinking into damp soil, the weight of her old life clinging to her shoulders like a ghost she couldn't shake. She had been a medic in the Russian army for 7 years, enough time to see more blood than rain, more goodbyes than hellos. When she finally walked away, she didn't even pack a proper bag. She just bought the first one-way ticket out of Moscow that didn't lead to Europe. That's how she ended up here. In a land she'd only seen in postcards, a place where strangers smiled too much and roosters served as alarm clocks. The first days were chaos. She arrived at a dusty terminal in Puerto Princesa, clutching her old army rucksack, unsure of what she was even running from. The heat hit her like a slap, thick, wet, relentless. Her pale skin flushed pink in minutes, her blonde hair stuck to her neck, and she found herself laughing at the absurdity of it all. Back in Russia, she'd spent years longing for warmth. Now she would have traded anything for snow. But when she reached the jungle, following a local man who drove her on his motorbike past rivers, palm trees, and 1,000 curious stares, she felt something in her chest loosen. The air smelled of life. Earth, rain, mango, smoke. The man's name was Jun. He was in his early 30s with tanned skin and a grin that came easily. He spoke English with a melody that made even simple words sound kind. "You stay in Barangay San Pedro," he said, tapping his chest proudly. "My place, safe, simple. No army, no problem." She didn't know whether to laugh or cry at that. The village wasn't much, just a handful of bamboo houses on stilts, a small chapel, and a river that cut through the forest like a mirror. Children ran barefoot, chasing each other with laughter that echoed through the trees. Chickens strutted beneath hammocks. Somewhere, someone was singing an old love song on a cheap radio. Elena was offered a small hut at the edge of the village. Jun's mother, a short woman with kind eyes and hands that smelled like coconut oil, placed a bowl of rice and fried fish in front of her. "Kain kamuna," she said, motioning for her to eat. Elena nodded, not understanding the words but feeling the warmth behind them. That night, lying on a thin mat under a mosquito net, Elena listened to the jungle breathe. It was the first night in years she didn't hear sirens or gunfire in her head. For the first time, she felt her heartbeat syncing with something larger, slower, and more forgiving. She woke at dawn to the sound of distant laughter. Outside, Jun was trying to fix an old wooden canoe by the river. He waved at her with a hammer in one hand and said, "Good morning, soldier." She froze. "Not anymore," she said softly. "Okay," he replied. Then, "Good morning, friend." The way he said it, simple, unguarded, made her chest ache. Days turned into weeks. Elena found small ways to help. When a little boy scraped his knee, she cleaned the wound and wrapped it with the precision of a medic. When Jun's mother had a fever, Elena brewed ginger tea and cooled her forehead with damp cloths. Word spread fast in the barangay. The Russian woman knows medicine. Soon people came to her hut at dusk carrying their worries. A cut here, a fever there, sometimes just loneliness disguised as pain. At first, Elena hesitated. She wasn't licensed here, wasn't even sure she had the right. But in the eyes of the villagers, she saw something she hadn't seen in years: trust without fear. One evening, a mother brought her baby with a cough that wouldn't stop. The child's chest rattled with each breath. Elena felt panic rise in her throat. She'd seen this before, back in Ukraine, in the field hospitals where supplies were scarce. She searched her backpack for something, anything, and found an old stethoscope she had nearly thrown away. Jun appeared at the doorway. "You need help?" She nodded. "I need clean water, boil it. And cloth. Fast." He ran. For hours, she worked by the dim light of a kerosene lamp, the baby's cries breaking her heart one small breath at a time. She cleaned the tiny chest, used steam from boiling water to ease the cough, whispered Russian lullabies without realizing it. By dawn, the child was sleeping soundly against his mother's chest. Elena stepped outside, tears blurring the sunrise. Jun was waiting with 2 cups of coffee. "You didn't sleep," he said quietly. "I couldn't." He handed her a cup. "You saved that child," she shook her head. "No, the jungle did. The heat, the air, it keeps them alive." Russia is cold. Too cold for small hearts. June studied her face for a long moment. You think you came here to rest, he said. But maybe you came here to remember. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at the river. The surface shimmered gold in the morning light, reflecting both of them, two strangers from opposite sides of the world, drawn together by accident or fate. She thought of the men she couldn't save, the comrades she buried under frozen ground, the silence that haunted her every winter. For the first time, she felt those ghosts losing their grip. Each day after that, she became more a part of the village. She learned to eat with her hands, to greet people with magandang umaga, and to laugh at her own clumsy Tagalog. The children followed her everywhere, calling her Ate Elena. She started planting herbs near her hut, lemongrass, ginger, turmeric, remembering the old Russian remedies her grandmother once taught her. Jun would come by with coconuts or fish, teasing her about being too serious. You look at plants like they are soldiers, he'd joke. She would roll her eyes, but secretly she liked his laughter. It was different from the loud, empty laughter she knew back home. It had sincerity, the kind that heals without trying. One night, during a tropical storm, the wind howled through the trees like something alive. Rain pounded the roofs, thunder rolled across the mountains. Power went out, and the whole barangay disappeared into darkness. Jun came to her hut, soaked to the bone. The river is rising, he said. We need to move people to higher ground. Without hesitation, Elena grabbed her flashlight and boots. The medic in her woke up instantly, efficient, fearless. They worked through the night, carrying children, helping elders, tying ropes between trees so people wouldn't slip in the mud. The rain felt endless, but so did the courage of those villagers, laughing, shouting, helping one another even as their homes flooded. By dawn, the storm eased. No one had died. Elena stood by the river, soaked and shivering, watching the sunrise break through the mist. Jun walked over, handed her a towel, and said, You really are a soldier. But a good one, she smiled faintly. No, not anymore. Here, I'm just someone trying to start over. He nodded slowly, then said something that stayed with her long after he left. Maybe starting over doesn't mean forgetting who you were. Maybe it means remembering why you wanted to live in the first place. Elena watched him walk back toward the village, the sun rising behind him, lighting up the wet leaves in shades of gold and green. The jungle around her felt different that morning, not wild, not foreign, but alive in a way that made her feel alive too. For the first time in years, she didn't want to run anymore. Weeks slipped into months, and Elena's life began to take the shape of something she never thought she'd have again: quiet purpose. She woke with the sun, fetched water from the river, and treated small illnesses in the barangay. The locals started calling her Dr. Elena, though she always corrected them with a smile. Not doctor, she'd say, just helper. Jun, however, refused to use any title. To me, you're comrade, he teased one morning while carving bamboo under the shade of a mango tree. She frowned, trying to suppress a grin. Comrade? That's not a friendly word where I come from. Then here, we make it friendly. That was Jun, turning heavy things into lightness, turning awkward silence into laughter. He spent his days fishing, fixing things, and caring for his elderly mother. When Elena asked why he never left the village, he said simply, This is home. I already have everything I need. A roof, a river, and people who remember my name. That answer lingered in her mind long after. Back in Russia, she had medals, ranks, paychecks. But nobody remembered her name. They remembered her file. Sometimes, late at night, she would walk alone by the river, letting the chirping of crickets drown out her thoughts. The jungle, for all its noise, had a strange way of silencing her pain. Still, there were nights when it all came back. The war, the faces of the wounded, the smell of burning fuel and blood. One night, June found her sitting by the riverbank, hugging her knees. The moonlight painted her skin silver, her blonde hair damp with humidity. You look like a ghost, he said softly, sitting beside her. I feel like one. He didn't press, didn't ask for details. He just sat beside her, quiet. After a long pause, she said, I saw things I can't unsee, Jun. Children. Soldiers, I was supposed to save them. I couldn't save all. Jun took a slow breath. Maybe saving everyone wasn't your task. Maybe saving yourself was. She looked at him, at his calm, grounded face, his steady eyes that seemed to belong to the earth itself. And if I don't know how, then let us teach you. We Filipinos are good at surviving storms. The next morning, she found a small bundle at her doorstep. A carved wooden charm in the shape of a leaf, tied with red thread. Jun's handwriting on a note read, "For peace of heart. Hang near your bed." That charm stayed by her bedside every night after that. Life in the jungle village had its rhythm, the smell of rice cooking at dawn, the hum of motorcycles passing through, the chatter of children playing tumbang preso. Elena found herself smiling more, laughing freely, her Russian accent softening around Filipino words. But peace, she learned, is fragile. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered without warning. Thunder rolled in the distance and villagers began rushing to secure their homes. "It's not typhoon season," Jun muttered, frowning at the sky. But within minutes, rain poured down in thick sheets, turning paths into rivers and roofs into drums. Elena helped Jun tie up the boats, but the wind was relentless. Then came the sound that froze her blood, a cry from the hillside. "Jun! Someone's trapped!" Without hesitation, they ran toward the voice. A small landslide had hit one of the bamboo huts near the forest edge. Mud and debris half buried the doorway, and inside, a child's hand reached out weakly. Jun dug with his bare hands while Elena crawled through a small gap. The air was thick with dust and panic. "Hold on, baby, hold on," she whispered in Russian without realizing. Her body moved on instinct, the same way it did on the battlefield. After what felt like hours, Jun pulled the child free, covered in mud but breathing. The villagers cheered, crying and clapping. Elena sat back, shaking, her hands trembling as memories surged through her. The sound of explosions, the weight of bodies, the adrenaline that once defined her life. Jun knelt beside her. "Hey, you're safe." He's safe, but she couldn't hear him at first. Her mind was back in a frozen city, her breath fogging through a mask, her fingers soaked in red. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders. "Lena, look at me." She met his eyes, steady, brown, grounding. The world came back into focus. Rain, mud, cheering villagers, the smell of wet earth. She burst into tears without warning, collapsing into his arms. Jun held her tightly, his hand on the back of her head. "It's over. You're not there anymore." It was the first time she cried since leaving Russia. That night, after the storm had passed, the villagers gathered at the chapel to pray in thanksgiving. Candles flickered, illuminating faces tired but grateful. Elena stood at the back, feeling something stir in her chest, a strange mixture of grief and belonging. Jun came to stand beside her. "You saved that boy," he said. "So did you." He smiled. "We did it together. That's how we do things here." She looked at the candlelight dancing on his face. "I don't understand how you stay so calm," she said. "When danger comes, I still shake," he shrugged. "Because I already trust something bigger than fear. Life gives storms, but also mornings after." Elena looked at him for a long time. "You talk like a poet, Jun," he laughed. "No, I talk like a Filipino." For the first time, she laughed with him, really laughed. The kind that comes from deep inside, where healing begins. Weeks after the storm, the jungle came alive again. The villagers rebuilt, the children went back to playing, and the air filled once more with the sound of laughter and radio songs. Elena felt lighter, like each day stripped away another layer of her old life. She and Jun worked together often. He would fix roofs while she treated cuts and fevers. Sometimes they'd share lunch by the river, rice, dried fish, mangoes. She learned to eat with her hands, and Jun teased her for being too neat. One afternoon, he showed her how to climb a coconut tree. "No boots," he said, laughing. "You must feel the bark with your feet. I was trained to jump from helicopters." "Not trees," she said, half laughing, half terrified. But when she finally reached the middle of the trunk, sweaty and laughing, Jun shouted, "See? You're one of us now." She laughed so hard she almost lost her grip. But peace never lasts without being tested. One evening, word spread that a man from the nearby barangay had been bitten by a snake deep in the jungle. He was unconscious and there was no nearby clinic. Jun came running to her hut, breathless. "They need help, Dr. Elena. Can you come?" She didn't hesitate. Grabbing her medical kit, she followed him into the forest trail. The sun was gone. Only fireflies and flashlights lit the path. Her pulse raced as memories of field missions came flooding back. The urgency, the chaos. the sense of being the only one standing between life and death. They reached the man's hut, a middle-aged farmer, pale and sweating. The bite mark was swollen and purple. Elena worked fast, cleaning the wound, applying pressure, giving instructions in a calm, steady tone. "His pulse is weak," she said. "We need to keep him awake." Jun held the man's hand, whispering prayers. The villagers watched in silence. Elena felt time blur again, her movements mechanical, precise, but her heart trembling. Hours passed before the man finally stirred, coughing weakly. Relief swept through the crowd. Jun looked at her with pride. "You did it again," she shook her head. "We did it." But later, as they walked back under the moonlight, Elena whispered, "Every time I save someone, I remember the ones I couldn't." Jun stopped, turned to her and said gently, "Then maybe that's why you're here. To balance the weight of those memories with new ones." She looked up at the sky, the stars bright and unbothered by human pain. For the first time, she whispered a prayer, not in Russian, not in English, but softly in the language she was learning. "Salamat, Diosko." "Thank you, my God." Jun smiled beside her. "You're learning fast," she smiled back, tears glimmering in her blue eyes. "Because you people have too many words for kindness." The next morning, she woke to the sound of roosters and realized something had shifted inside her. The jungle was no longer a refuge from her past. It was becoming her future. She wasn't running anymore. She was healing, and in that healing, she was beginning to love. Not just Jun, but the land itself. The laughter, the chaos, the rain, the people who taught her that peace isn't the absence of war. It's the presence of community. The first golden rays of the morning stretched over the jungle canopy, turning the mist into a shimmering veil. Elena sat outside the bamboo hut she shared with Jun, watching the world awaken. Roosters crowed, children's laughter echoed faintly from the village path, and the scent of wood smoke and rice filled the air. For the first time in years, she felt peace, not fleeting or forced, but real. Yet peace, she had learned, wasn't the absence of scars. It was learning to live with them. Jun came out of the hut, his shirt half-buttoned, holding 2 mugs of Barako coffee. His hair was still messy from sleep, and his smile was that same gentle curve that had somehow reached into the coldest part of her heart and thawed it. "Good morning, Elena," he said softly, handing her a mug. She smiled. "You still make it too strong." "You're just too Russian for Filipino coffee," he teased, sitting beside her. She took a sip and winced slightly. "You might be right." They both laughed, a sound that carried across the clearing. Months had passed since the typhoon. The village had rebuilt almost entirely, thanks in part to Elena's tireless efforts. The small clinic she started with Jun's help now had real beds, medicine, and even a solar-powered fridge for vaccines. What began as a makeshift hut had grown into a true health outpost, humble but alive with hope. Elena had become more than a healer. She was now a sister, a daughter, a friend. The villagers no longer looked at her as the foreigner with a strange accent. They saw her as Ate Elena, but behind her calm eyes, a quiet storm still brewed. At night, when the rain fell too hard or thunder cracked too close, her mind would flash back to the frozen fields of Donetsk. The wounded faces, the smell of metal and blood, the endless waiting for rescue that never came. Sometimes, she'd wake up gasping, trembling in the dark. And every time Jun would be there, no words. Just his arms, his warmth, his heartbeat against hers, reminding her that she wasn't trapped in the past anymore. Still, she knew healing wasn't a straight path. It was a circle, and sometimes you found yourself walking through old pain again, just to discover how far you'd come. One humid afternoon, Elena was teaching a group of children how to wash their hands properly when she noticed Jun pacing near the edge of the clearing. He looked worried. "Jun?" she called. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then walked over, his brow furrowed. "There's trouble at the mining site again," he said quietly. "Some outsiders came, people from the city. They want to reopen the old gold pit near the river." Elena frowned. "But that area's sacred. And dangerous. The soil's unstable." "I know," he said, lowering his voice. "But they've got permits now. The elders are upset, but the mayor gave them permission. It's going to cause a rift." That night, the whole village gathered around the fire. The atmosphere was tense, men arguing, women shaking their heads, children huddled close, An elder stood, voice quivering with age and anger. "We cannot allow them to poison our water again. We lost our crops once already. Must we lose them twice?" Another man countered. "But they're offering jobs. Our young men need work. We can't live on coconuts forever." Voices rose. Lines were being drawn. Elena sat quietly beside Jun, listening. Her mind flashed back to another time, another conflict. Soldiers shouting, orders, divisions. She knew how quickly disagreements could turn into wars. Finally, she stood. "Everyone," she said softly, but her voice carried. "Please. You all want the same thing, to protect your families." All eyes turned to her. "I've seen what happens when people forget that," she continued. "When they let anger decide. You lose everything, not just land, but each other." Silence fell. The only sound was the crackle of the fire. Jun watched her, pride and worry mingling in his gaze. "We can fight the mine," Elena said, "but not with fists. With unity. If the mayor won't listen, we'll show him what this village stands for. Let me help organize a health report, evidence of contamination. We'll speak with the media in town, together," the villagers murmured in agreement. It wasn't just a plan, it was hope. The next weeks were a blur of work. Elena and Jun collected water samples, documented sicknesses, and wrote statements in English for local journalists. She'd never imagined that her military training, discipline, order, resilience would someday help her fight not enemies, but exploitation. But this battle was different. This time she was on the side of life. Then, one afternoon, as they returned from the riverbank, Jun slipped on a muddy slope. Elena caught his arm, but both tumbled down, landing hard near the water. They lay there laughing breathlessly, mud splattered all over their clothes. "You okay?" she asked between laughs. "I think I broke my pride," he said, rubbing his elbow. She smiled, brushing a leaf from his hair. "I think you look good with mud." He looked up at her, eyes warm. "And you look like home," her laughter faltered. His gaze was steady, tender, and it stirred something deep inside her. She wanted to say something, anything, but words failed. So she kissed him. It wasn't the fiery, desperate kind of kiss she'd known before war. This was different, gentle, real. It tasted of rain and earth and everything she'd been missing. When they finally pulled apart, he whispered, "I thought I'd lost you to your ghosts." "You didn't," she said, her voice trembling. "You saved me from them." Weeks later, the environmental report reached the provincial office. News spread. A small crew of journalists came to the village, filming interviews and capturing footage of polluted streams and dying fish. Elena found herself in front of a camera, speaking in halting English but with fierce conviction. "This land is their life. You cannot take away someone's life for gold." Her words went viral in local news. Within days, pressure mounted, and the mining company was forced to suspend operations. The village erupted in celebration. There were drums, songs, food everywhere. Children danced with banana leaves as makeshift hats. Jun approached her as the night deepened, his hand reaching for hers. "You did it, Elena." "No," she said softly, smiling. "We did." They stood together under the starlight, watching the villagers laugh and sing. For once, Elena didn't feel like an outsider looking in. She belonged. But peace rarely stays untested. A month later, Elena received a letter through the postman in town, stamped from Russia. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. It was from her former commander. "Elena Sergeyevna," it began. "We have located several of your former unit members. They are being honored for their service. You are invited to return and receive your medal. Your country remembers." Her chest tightened. The words felt heavy, cold. A part of her had longed to hear them, but now they felt like chains. "That night," she told Jun. He listened quietly, his thumb brushing the back of her hand. "Do you want to go?" She hesitated. "I don't know. I want closure. But I'm afraid if I go back, I'll lose who I've become." Jun's gaze softened. "Then maybe closure isn't about going back. Maybe it's about forgiving yourself here." She looked at him, tears welling. "I don't know if I can. You already have," he whispered. "Every time you heal someone. Every time you laugh again." A few weeks passed before Elena made her decision. She wrote a reply to the letter. "To those I served with, I honor you from afar. But my medal is here, in the lives I help, in the people who welcomed me, and in the man who taught me to live again." Elena Sergeyevna. She sealed it, feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. That evening, she walked with June to the river. The same river that once carried sorrow now shimmered like a ribbon of light. Jun waded into the shallows, grinning. "You still haven't learned to swim properly?" he teased. "I learned enough not to drown," she said, laughing. He reached out a hand. "Then come here. One last lesson." She hesitated but took his hand. The cool water lapped around them as fireflies began to glow along the bank. "Close your eyes," he said softly. She did. "Now," he whispered, "breathe. Let go," and she did. For the first time, she felt the river carry her, not drag her under, but cradle her gently. She laughed, a pure, free sound that echoed into the night. When she opened her eyes, Jun was looking at her with tears in his. "You're home now, Elena," she smiled, the words sinking deep into her heart. "Yes," she whispered. "I am." Months turned into a year. The jungle bloomed. The clinic expanded. Children grew taller. Elena's hair, once tied tight in military knots, now flowed freely in the wind. The villagers often joked that she brought good fortune wherever she walked. And on a quiet morning, beneath the same tree where she and Jun first met, they were married. There were no soldiers, no medals, no ranks. Only laughter, flowers, and the sound of guitars. The elders blessed them with rice and prayers. When June lifted her veil, a simple woven cloth she'd made herself, she whispered, "I never thought I'd live to see peace." He smiled. "Peace was waiting for you all along." As they embraced, the crowd cheered. Somewhere in the trees, a white heron took flight, soaring toward the sunlight. Years later, travelers who came to that village would often hear the story of Ate, Elena, the blonde woman who came from across the world and healed a whole community. They'd see her walking barefoot through the fields, children running after her, and her husband beside her carrying a basket of fruit. And though few knew her past, everyone could feel it, that quiet strength in her eyes, the kind born not from victory, but from surrender. Because Elena had learned the greatest truth of all: you don't escape your pain by leaving the battlefield. You escape it by planting flowers where it once stood. And as the sun set over the jungle, turning the river gold, Elena whispered a final prayer in Russian, a prayer not for the past, but for the life she'd finally found. "Thank you for teaching me how to be human again." The wind carried her words through the trees, mingling with laughter, the crackle of cooking fires, and the endless hum of life. In that moment, Elena knew she was no longer a soldier, no longer lost. She was simply alive, and that was more than enough.